So in the last video, we were taking a look at transforming points using coordinate transformations, and we had taken a look specifically at how we could transform a line, such as the one that's there, and the points that are associated with that, by using several different transformations. So one of the transformations we had taken a look at was reflections. In this video, we're going to really take a look at stretches and compressions of a figure or of points that are on a graph such as this one. So whenever we're stretching or compressing a figure, we're taking a look at multiplying its coordinates or pieces of its coordinates by a certain value. So in this case, let's take a look at stretching this figure, okay, so this line that's here and the points that are associated with it, by a factor of 2, and we're going to do this vertically. So what that means is that every single point that's here is going to be stretched vertically by a factor of 2. Okay, so we're going to be taking a point such as this one, and we're going to be increasing it. We're going to be stretching it vertically by a factor of 2, meaning we're going to multiply those values by a factor of 2. So if we do this, if we notice first of all some of the points that are along here, and let's highlight a few of those points. So we have some points that are on there, and we're really taking a look at their distance away from the x-axis, and that distance is what we're taking a look at as multiplying that by that value of 2. So in this case, for our first point that's here, it has a distance of 1 away from the x-axis, and so we're going to multiply that 1 by a factor of 2, and that's just going to bring us to this point here. And then we're going to keep doing that with some of the other points that are here, stretching those by a factor of 2. Okay, so multiplying each of those distances by that value of 2. So if we take a look at the value here, this is a value of -1. Multiplying that by 2 is going to bring us to this point. And then we'll do the same thing here. Now this one's 3 away from the x-axis, so multiplying that by 2 is going to then bring us to 6 away from the x-axis. Okay, and then this value right here is 5 away, so we're going to go another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 away here. And then that same process continues on the other side. So if we take a look at maybe this point here, then that's going to be 3 away, which will then multiply by 2 to get to this point. Okay, and if we start connecting those values, let's connect those points as a new line. Just make that one green so we can see it pretty easily. And then we have this. And you'll notice that as a linear equation, we have just taken its slope and actually changed that slope. But some things to keep in mind is that the x-intercept that's here actually remained the same the whole time. That didn't change. And again, because that is whenever we multiply a value of 0 by 2 or by any other value, then it's going to stay as the same value. Taking a look at the points individually, so if we take a look at maybe the point 2, 1, 2, 1, we notice that the new point that it becomes is going to be 2, 2, 2, 2. And so it looks like the x value didn't change, but the y value did change. And let's take a look at another point just to emphasize that. If we take a look at the point maybe 3, 3, okay, so that was an original point that was there, so 3, 3, that has become the point. Okay, that has become the point 3, 6 now. 3, 6. And so we can notice that the y value here is being multiplied by 2 every time. So if we take the point x, y, that is becoming the point x, because the x value stays the same, okay, for each one of those, and then the y value gets multiplied by 2, so it becomes 2y. And that is really going to highlight a vertical stretch by a factor of 2. And notice that whatever our factor is here is actually going to become the factor that we see in front of the y value here whenever we're dealing with a vertical stretch. Now if we're taking a look at a horizontal stretch, we're going to get a very similar thing happening. So let's take a look at that for a second. And we can get rid of this. I'll leave that the vertical stretch there by a factor of 2 on there for a moment. Let's take a look at a horizontal stretch. Horizontal stretch. And just to mix it up, we'll do that by a factor of 3. Okay, so in this case, we're going to do the same thing, except the distance away from the y-axis is going to get multiplied by a factor of 3 in this case. So if we take a look at the point 2, comma 1, that's actually going to become the point 6, comma 1. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, comma 1. It'll be this point here. So notice that this point has become now this point here. And then we're going to do the same thing with some other points. So if we take a look at maybe the point 1, comma negative 1, then that's going to become the point we're going to get, instead of 1, we're going to get 3 comma negative 1, multiplying it by a factor of 3. And then if we take a look at maybe we take a look at the point 0 comma negative 3. So 0 comma negative 3. Well, since this is on the y-axis, it's actually not going to change at all, and we're going to get this point staying exactly the same as it was. Whereas the other points, if we take a look maybe at 1 comma negative 5, that's going to become the point negative 3 comma negative 5, because we've multiplied it by a factor of 3. And so if we look at connecting those values now, and we'll do that one in blue so we can see it pretty easily. So in this case, we get our line. Okay, and some things to notice about this. If we take a look at the points themselves and how those developed. Okay, so we have the point, one of our points was the point 2 comma 1. So that became the point 6 comma 1. So notice that the x value changed, but the y value stayed the same. Then if we take a look maybe at the point negative 1 comma negative 5, or negative 1 negative 5, negative 1 comma negative 5, and that has now become the point negative 3 comma negative 5. Notice that the x value again was changing, and so if we take a look at those, how the x value changes in this case, and we take a look at the general point, x comma y, it is now becoming 3 times whatever the x value was, comma whatever the y value was. The y value stayed the same, and the x value is what changed. And that is what is going to be our horizontal stretch by a factor of 3. And notice that whatever value we have here, that factor is what is going in front of the x value here.